Welcome to the Applicant Tracking Training, session number 3. So far we've created the portal and we've published it out, and we've done some of the advanced settings and customized the applicant tracking system to meet more of your organization, their specific needs. So today what we're going to cover is how to create a job posting and get that out to the site for people to start applying to. In session 4, what we'll cover after today will be how to manage applicants that are coming into the system. All right, so let's get started. The screen that you have in front of you is the home page for applicant tracking. Again, I get to that by going to Settings and Applicant Tracking. And from here, the first screen that comes up just shows all the listed open positions. So what we're going to do today is create a new position. So from this page in the green bar here, we're going to click on Create Job Posting. And the first screen that comes up is where we have our job details, and this is where the majority of our time is probably going to be spent in creating the posting. The very first option up at the top is a template, and we'll see in a few minutes you have the ability to save each job that you create as a template. It saves a little bit of time, not a ton, but it will save a little bit of time if there are jobs that are very similar. So for the example today, we're actually going to start from scratch. We don't want to use one as a template. If we did have one, and I do have a few here, or one, if this job was very similar to the one we're getting ready to create, we would select that and click Load from Template, and that would pre-populate some of the fields. Okay. So for today, let's just create a position. Let's just call it an accountant 2. Okay. Our status, if I'm an administrator, then I have the rights to make that a live position that's already been approved and open for posting. Most of the time, if you have managers that have access to create postings, a lot of times you'll have their settings so that that posting requires approval by an administrator or maybe one of their managers. If that's the case, they're not going to have an option to choose the status. It'll automatically always be in pending until someone goes and approves that and moves it to the open status. So for today, let's mark it as pending. We'll come back to it in a few minutes, and we'll approve it or move it out to an open position in just a few moments. The category, this is one of the things we did on the last session, is we created your categories that are custom to your organization. And so if I drop those down, you can see all the options that we chose. And so Accountant 2 is probably more likely going to pop into the accounting category. The master job posting, we recommend that most of the time this is not something that you want to use. What that job is there for is if you had multiple positions and you wanted to funnel them into one specific position. So let's say that I really only had one accountant position, but I wanted to post maybe accountant 1, accountant 2, and accountant 3. By putting a master job posting there, it would funnel all those accountant positions into one accounting position. And I don't have any master job posting under the accounting position. I think I do under maybe another one here. All right. So for example, any that you have listed, you would be able to funnel into one of those postings. All right. The position type, you have a couple options there: external, internal, or both. One of the things that you can do is push things to your internal job board, and that's something that when we go over employee self-service, you'll be able to see that on the employee portal you can turn on a jobs portion, and any job that you have listed here as internal would push out to that site, and the employee would have the ability to apply to an internal posting. External would be any site, obviously, other than that. So the candidates that aren't already employees would come to either your site or one of your referral sources that you've set up and apply for a position that you have open. A common setup here is to do both so that you can get the best applicant, whether it be an internal or external candidate. The job type, this is a custom list that you'll create. Common ones are full-time, temporary workers, part-time, things like that, and we can add to that list to create whatever options you want there for the type of job. Start date, this is the date that you want this position published to your site. So for example, let's say that I've got this accountant 2 position. I may not be ready to start taking applicants yet. Maybe I need to terminate someone in the current applicant 2 or accountant 2 position before I post that, or maybe budget doesn't allow me to really hire someone for a few more months, but I want to go ahead and put the position in the system, just not publish it out to the site. Start date is when that position becomes open for all to start applying to. Okay, so let's just take this one and say that we want to do it September 1st of this year. Okay, fill requirement would be the number of positions you're looking to fill. Oftentimes that's one. If you just want to hire one position, you may have a couple out there. The benefit there is it'll just kind of let you know how many you have left to fill, and if you need to, if you've already closed or filled the position, it knows how to determine when it's filled based on the number of candidates that we've already hired. Okay, so let's leave it at 1 for now, and that is the default. The department, typically you're never going to use the department for our setup, but if you do have an option, because the department is not something that flows through typically to the employee file. We use call centers to allocate for general ledger purposes and things like that. So typically we're going to leave department as undefined. Your account manager will tell you otherwise if you do need to use that. Requisition number is something that not a required field. Some clients do choose to use that, especially if you have maybe a lot of different departments or locations or decentralization, and you want to use some type of numbering scheme. So maybe a requisition of like maybe 01, 55, 66. Maybe you have a process, or if you don't, maybe it's something you implement, is that you know all requisitions that are with a 01, it's easy to determine all my 01s are location A, maybe all my 02s are location B. It's also a way just to kind of keep them organized. You can pull the requisition number into reports and things like that. Okay? But again, not mandatory, so let's leave that blank for now. On the city, this is where an applicant will see when they come into the site where the job is going to be located. So that should be the physical location. City and state. So, for example, let's just put Kansas City and put the zip in there if you know it. And the location would be, let's say maybe you have multiple branches or multiple locations in that city. So let's put maybe the specific location. So again, if you have a local candidate who's coming in to apply, maybe you have 3 or 4 branches or 3 or 4 offices or something in that city, it'll help them identify which one of those locations is this specific job for. Again, if you're hiring just open-ended or you don't have multiple locations, that's fine, leave that blank. Okay. The hiring manager, you have a hiring manager and a recruiter, and those can be the same person or different people, and that list from a hiring manager is anyone who is set up as a manager in the system. And so this will trigger who will get the emails if we have it set up so that the manager at the company level will say, hey, for all applicants, we're going to email the manager when a new applicants come on. And the way we determine which manager we're emailing is from this field here. The recruiter, in our advanced settings, we set up people as recruiters, and whomever we have in that list as a recruiter could also be added. A lot of times maybe that's an HR generalist or someone who's kind of in charge of coordinating interviews and things like that. So your hiring manager is probably the person who's looking through the applicants and making decisions on who to bring in for an interview or who not. The recruiter is probably someone who needs to have access to that stuff and wants to be notified of that. And they just may need to keep that at a high level. Okay, so I can add recruiter. I also can leave recruiter blank, right? Or I can set them up as the same person as the hiring manager. The recruiter doesn't by default always get an email. If I check that box right there that I'm hovering on, that will also send the recruiter an email as soon as an applicant has been applied or has applied to this position. If I click that button, send a job posting, what that's going to do is above my job description. So when an applicant comes in to read, it's going to put the contact information for that recruiter at the very top. Okay, so if you really want to highlight, hey, we don't want you to contact anyone other than this recruiter, then you can put that send a job posting, and that'll put the text at the very top of the job description. I'm going to set up a recruiter. When we add the job description here in a few minutes, we'll come back and we'll click that button so that you can see what that looks like. So let's set up Josh Smith here as a recruiter, and let's put Larry as our hiring manager. A reference form and survey. What this allows you to do is trigger each job posting to automatically send the references that an applicant puts in an emailed survey. So you may have 5 or 10 questions or how many ever questions, and as long as there's something that can be answered electronically, it could be open-ended text, multiple choice. If they can answer those questions about the candidate, when they click Save and Submit, that will send the form back into the system. And the trigger to make that form get sent is to select something under this option here. And we'll talk in a training in the future on how to create surveys. But just understand that the reference form that is sent is created as a survey. And so in this case, I'm going to set up the reference request survey that I've already created as my reference form. Minimum work experience. This is just kind of for information purposes only so that you can track on each job the specific years that you're looking for. So let's say that for an accountant too, we probably want at least 3 years of experience. The starting salary, let's just put a number in here. And that's not going to be displayed to the candidates. And then salary notes. Maybe this is your tolerance level of how much you'll negotiate. Or maybe you want to put in something, let's do the pay range median and tolerance. Put maybe a percentage that you want to waiver on that. Okay. If I were to check that box right below to make this job posting available as a template, as we talked about right at the very beginning, this will allow this position to be in that drop-down menu so that if other jobs are going to use this standard layout, then I can say, hey, this is a template. I want to use this one to kind of start from something. Okay? It saves a little bit of time. It's not something that's overly popular just because most positions are unique in and of themselves. There's not a whole lot of overlap. But again, it is an option there if you think that's something that you want to use. The desired levels of education, again, kind of like the minimum work experience, it just kind of gives you an idea per position of what you'd like for this specific job. And so for this, I think we want a bachelor's degree, definitely. Okay. The job description, the most common thing here is to just copy and paste if you already have a job description, which I just did. Or you can type in here. This is an HTML box so that you can highlight things. You can put bulleted items in here. You can see that I have some bullets down here. So you can edit it to make it whatever you want. Let's come back up to send a job posting. I'm going to click that option there, and we're going to see where that pops in down here on the job description now. You can see down here at the bottom of the screen, top of the job description. Now that put who the recruiter is and their information at the very top so that I can draw attention to that is the person that we want them to contact for this position. Okay. So I think I filled out all my details now. I'm going to go ahead and save this job posting. We'll move on to step 2. And at any time, if I need to come back to this step or if I need to edit it, it's very easy to come in and do that. It's always something that you can come in and edit, and it will be live as soon as you edit that. Okay. So let's go to step 2, which is configuring additional questions. One of the things we covered last time was how to add additional questions for the entire applicant pool. So any applicant that has come into the organization, they would see a list of additional questions. What we're looking at today is going to be how to add additional questions to those that are very specific to this job. So, for example, this is an accounting-based position, so we may want to ask something about where they're at in the process of getting their CPA certification or something like that. Again, exact same screen as we looked at last time on how to build a question. You enter the question and the type of question over here on the left. And then if it's multiple choice or a checkbox or something like that, then you would add the options for the response over on the right-hand side. Again, if there was a question that we added that at the global level that maybe for this one specific question we didn't want to appear, then we can delete any of those standard questions down here at the bottom just by putting a mark in the box here and clicking delete those records. So now let's move on to step 3, where we configure our skills. We'll talk about in the next training session how the system will do a skill match on each applicant and how well they meet your skill criteria. This doesn't necessarily kick any out, but this just tells you, hey, maybe there are 3 or 4 things that I really would like to have, and it quickly evaluates to see what level of match they are on those couple things. So in this example, let's just look at, let's say I'd like them to have a bachelor's degree. Maybe we do want them to have their CPA already, and maybe them to be an Excel expert. So those are 3 fields that we want them to have. The candidate doesn't know that when they come in. They're going to fill out all the skills that they do have. And once they fill that out, the applicant tracking system will tell based on, for example, if we're using 3 here that are required and they have 2 of the 3, they're going to be at 66% match. Okay. Again, skills are configured, very customized to your organization. You have categories and then the actual skill itself. You'll customize as many or as little of those as you want. And then the last step is just the referral links. We talked about last time that you can create referral sources. And so for each source that you've set up, and we've got 4, for example, here, the system will automatically create a unique URL for that site, for that position. So in this case, let's say that Career Builder is somewhere that you recruit from. By default, you're going to have a site on your website probably, and an applicant could come to that. You don't need one here because it automatically will create a URL for your company site. But when you go to post on Career Builder, or you want to go maybe on Monster or Craigslist or something like that, then you need a unique URL for each one of those postings so that you can identify where the applicants have come from. And the most common way to do this is just take this link here. You can always access it. We'll see in a few minutes how to get back to this page. So you can always access this, copy and paste the URL, and when you're doing your advertisement or your posting on one of those sites, then you can always just drop this link in there for where the applicant would actually apply to the position. Okay. So this is the 4 steps. Once we've finished this, we're actually done with the posting. And so I'm going to go back to our job postings homepage. And the first thing that I notice is my position isn't listed here. And a very common mistake, or very common question that comes up is, where did my job go? And the easiest answer is it's probably there. It's just you need to filter and open up for it. Remember, we marked that it was in pending status, and we marked that it's not set to start until September 1st, meaning it's not going to be published until September 1st. If I look at my search criteria right now, I'm only looking at open positions, so I need to move that to, I want to see my pending positions, and I want to open it up so that I can see those jobs that start out into September. So once I've changed my filters, I click the filter button, and now our account at 2 position is listed in here. Okay. So if you have managers who've marked things and you've said that, hey, those positions need to be pending and required, then you'd come in here to approve those. They're going to be listed in your pending queue from your manager, and all you need to do once you've reviewed it and you're okay with it is you move the status from pending to open and save that job posting. And again, you can see any of the other information on that job posting just by clicking on the posting itself. So clicking on the name will open up that job posting. Okay, so that's kind of a wrap of creating a job posting. That covered setting up the job by putting the date in and by marking the status as open. That actually published it out to the site. We'll wrap up next time with how to manage the applicants that have come into that position and how to make decisions on hiring or declining different applicants. As always, if you have questions about anything we've covered today or in any of the trainings, please reach out to your account manager, and they'll be happy to assist you.